It is Anna Niemira from Fintech and Founding Conference 2019, and I am with Denise Hearn. It's a pleasure to have you here, a co-author of The Myth of the Capitalism. The book right here, Monopolies, the Death of the Competition. Well, it's a serious title, and there's definitely serious discussion in the book. And it's a brilliantly written book, easy to read, easy to understand, and at the same time, you fearlessly stood up to so many people and really giant corporations. What made you to write this book?
Well, my interest actually was in trying to understand where inequality comes from, the structural drivers of inequality. And I felt like a lot of the conversation was very surface level. So it was all about CEOs are paid too much, which may be true, but it doesn't explain why we've had this level of inequality. And so as I began researching with my colleague, we realized that not only that, but there were all kinds of other structural relationships in the economy that were breaking down, like workers. Even though there was low unemployment, workers were not getting a raise, and typically those two things go together. And so we realized that there was something structural going on in the economy that wasn't being accounted for. And so as we researched, we thought, wow, we've really hit upon something quite big here, which is that industry concentration. Firms have just merged and gobbled each other up, and so now we're in a position where most industries are dominated by just a few major players, and that has dramatic effects for consumers because you end up paying higher prices. It has effects for workers because you don't have as much bargaining power against these large corporations, and so your wages tend to go down. And also, it hurts suppliers who maybe are getting squeezed, because they can't sort of compete with these large corporations. And so, that's why we wrote the book. We wanted to expose this reality and then hopefully provide solutions so that we can actually return North American capitalist markets to actually true sort of more free, more equitable markets.
Should we fear that we are in danger, that the big corporations, the politicians, and the regulators will not really come together and won't change anything? What will happen then?
Well, I don't think we should live in fear. I think that we should educate ourselves and, to the best of our ability, try to understand how a system functions and where the key pieces that need to be fixed are. And so that's what we've tried to outline in the book. And then I actually am quite hopeful because there are quite a few, especially in the US, there's quite a few candidates now who are actually discussing these issues. They're talking about antitrust. Elizabeth Warren's talking about breaking up big tech and other similar proposals that are trying to essentially limit concentrated power in this way. And so I think that that's promising, and I think we'll see increasing conversations as we head towards the U.S. 2020 elections, and then in Canada as well. I think this dialogue will also continue to grow.
So there is a light of hope.
Yes, definitely.
That's very good.
Yes.
So should I kind of reverse my last question and say, should giant corporations be afraid of fintech or blockchain companies?
Well, I think that fintech and blockchain have a very interesting role to play in this conversation because they can challenge the traditional incumbents, and I think that's incredibly important. I think it's also important for people that are in the fintech space to also recognize that the internet, as an example, when it first was invented, it was touted as this great decentralized platform that was going to revolutionize everything, and in many ways it did. But now we're in a position where Google and Facebook have 70% of all internet traffic moves through their universe, and so what was meant to be decentralized has now totally centralized again. And so I would issue issue a word of warning to people in the fintech space, and especially working on blockchain technologies, to say that this technology has the ability to be very disruptive, but at the same time, you have to make sure that it will not get co-opted by the same types of re-centralizing interests that always seem to come into play. So how do you actually fundamentally build that in, not only to the technology, but also to the way that it's deployed, so that it can be impenetrable to that kind of re-centralizing power.
Yes, and that's super interesting because we are all using social media, and we had to surrender and voluntarily
right
to
exactly.
social media rules and terms and conditions in order to use it. So that's very important for us to keep in mind and make sure that whatever we doing right now, we considering even those new innovative technologies, they need to consider that yes, this is an issue and how we have to prevent everything in the future. So this is not going to happen to our innovative technologies, and we are not going to end up in 30 years being centralized.
Yes, exactly. Because I think there's one Chinese company right now called Bitmain that controls 80% of blockchain mining. So so you can see that there are pockets.
Yes,
of this
a lot
still
of firms
happening.
actually are in China.
Yes.
And that's what it is. And at the same time, they are very much into innovative technologies because they much more even advanced with it than North America is.
Oh yes, I mean everyone pays with their phone, and Alibaba and Alipay and WeChat Pay are just ubiquitous there.
So the issue also is, as a matter of fact, it's not that the China controls Chinese people within their territory, that eventually that won't spread out somewhere else. So learning from that Chinese example is how we need to set up the other part of the world, which actually can truly function on the decentralized basis.
Yes. For sure.
Denise, thank you so much. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of the conference, and we'll perhaps talk about your book in a deeper way some other time.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thanks
much.
for having me.
Thanks.